Anyways, I guess you guys lead it like you would.
Yeah.
Bad boys.
If you've heard our structured intros before, you'll recognize this one.
Have you ever heard that Eric Andre bit about why the fuck they play reggae on the
Yeah.
Like,
Jamaica is a tropical island.
Jamaica is a place where people play. Get on the fucking ground, you teenager! Put your fucking hands behind your head. Jamaica is a place in the sunshine. Okay, hey, that's a good way to open the show. Hello, motherfuckers, and greetings, and how the
Hello,
fuck I open the show?
motherfuckers.
Hello, motherfuckers.
What's up? What the fuck is up?
I was talking to the listeners are the motherfuckers,
Yeah,
but I
they know
suppose
that's
that
their
was
name.
that was also directed at all of you. I'm Jake Flores. This is Pod Damn America. It's also Generation Loss.
That's right.
That's right.
Hey, the new show from. Is it not new?
No, it is.
No, it's new. Yeah, no, you're right.
It's just funny the way you said it.
Oh. The new smash hit of the summer.
That's right.
That's right.
It's
It's winter. That's
the
smash hit of the
smash
summer anyway.
blockbuster podcast hit Generation Loss from Bryn Nebor and Jeremy Hammond.
Hello.
What up?
And I'm Alex Patak, and I'm on the show. If you're on the Chapo Trap House subreddit, my name is Alex Patak, and not the other guy, as was written out extensively by several of you.
Oh no, that's your new name. That's so funny.
Just because it is the
God.
holidays does not mean it's
We
the
all
airing
know
of grievances.
Anders' name for some reason because of his
he
great
never-
sign-on.
You never stop saying it.
Yeah, it's true.
It's branding.
That's
It's branding. It's very strong branding.
That's right.
Smart.
We, Jake, when we were at that cidery together.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is a wild sentence
Yo,
to
back
say.
when we were
But we went
practicing
to,
our edged weapons.
This is the kind of behavior that podcasters
Yeah,
do.
this
They
is-
go to cideries.
Yeah, this is the bourgeois limousine left.
Yeah. The cidery socialist.
Going to cideries together.
Jake, if you'll recall the cidery.
You were calling the cidery. No, but we got a whole bunch of free shit from somebody who was a fan of your show, and then we tried telling a story about Alex, and then he was like, "Who?"
Yeah.
I don't think
I get
that's
that a
because
lot.
he didn't know who Alex was. I think it's because he saw me and he went, "Hey, you're Jake Flores," and I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Oh my god, I work here. Come in and get a bunch of free cider out of the barrel thing." And then the more I talked to him, I was like, "Yeah, so Pod Damn America," and he's like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh, you're not a fan of me. You're a Reddit guy. You know who I am from
Yeah.
fucking Reddit and Cumtown and
right.
shit.
Uh,
Never
The
even heard my
unspeakable
podcast." But he liked me, so I couldn't figure it out.
He knows you from the fantastic drawing.
Maybe he knew you from your Homeland Security run-in.
Just from that.
Chapo.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking that he just liked you from the rumor spread on Cumtown of you having sex with a mentally disabled person. It was like,
Get in here! Get in here and get some free cider from me,
They
pal.
have-
from what I've heard, cool guy.
Very cool guy.
Gotta get him drunk, see if it happens.
You're just
again.
riding by and you're like, "Jake, me too."
Not unethical.
Yeah.
Anyway, today we are doing a crossover podcast.
That's
with
right.
Pod Damn America. We're watching the movie Surviving Edged Weapons.
Now, you may not have seen the film Surviving Edged Weapons at your local theater when it came through, mostly because it is just a training video for policemen on how to survive edged weapons.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
It's
But
on
it is
YouTube.
on YouTube.
You
Yep.
can stop the podcast and watch the media right now if you want to
Yeah.
play along.
You could do that. You
You've
could
got
even
an hour and a half.
Yeah, you could do yourself a favor and skip past the hour and a half one to the half-hour one, which is just all the reenactments.
Oh.
You
If
don't have to watch all the
No
other
interviews.
stuff.
In addition, if you play this podcast backwards, it will line up perfectly with the film.
Yes.
Damn, we planned it that way.
Yep.
The dark
This
side
is-
of the moon is the edged side of the moon. The most dangerous
The
side.
moon's got a knife.
The moon is
What you
making
weren't
furtive
looking
motion.
at was the dark side.
The moon's palm and a knife behind it.
So
Moon,
since this
moon, turn around. 360 degrees, moon. It's a cop. He's just got his gun aimed at the moon.
acid cop, cop on acid. Since this is a cross pod.
Yeah, maybe we could do.
Should we do the our segments?
Yeah, we
Which
could do
is-
some little bits from our show. Do you,
What
guys,
if you
do you
guys-
have little bits on your show?
Nah, it's
We're-
just
we're
different every
working on
time.
Working on some segments.
We've got some little bits.
We got some little bits
the
to
first
do.
one of which is, what did you guys watch this week?
I watched Surviving Edged Weapons. It was really funny. I have a lot to say about it, actually.
Did you watch anything else?
I did. What did I watch last night? I watched House, the Japanese
House-u.
horror movie. House.
Oh, nice.
Which is
Oh, I thought
about-
you meant House, like the show.
Down,
down,
the doctor.
down. No, the Japanese one. And it's these girls, and they go to a house, and the house eats them.
It's incredible.
But also, the reactions of the girls for most of the movies is not like scared. It's like, what is this house? It was very strange.
Yeah, a piano eats somebody.
A piano eats someone.
The cat is like a demon. And
More than anything, the editing is just so jarring to watch that by the end of the film you feel exhausted. And for that reason, I'm not sure I can recommend it to people unless that's what you're looking for.
yeah, it's an extremely surreal horror movie, if you could even call it a horror movie.
Yeah. I'm not
that's
going to try
cool.
to explain the plot to you because it would be like explaining a dream
That's
that
right.
I had. And
That's
there's no
right.
point.
The movie's really cool because they use practical effects to make shit that would later go on to be like in anime.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's from, I guess, like Shinto and weird Japanese shit I don't understand.
Bunch of-
Weird
bunch of
Japanese
yokais.
shit.
I will say that there is a girl
Like
named...
the primary religion of the country.
If Shinto doesn't fit under weird Japanese shit, what does? If you think about it.
Bukake.
Well, you know what? Great point. So all the girls are named after different attributes about them, and the only one you need to know is there's a girl named Kung Fu. And guess who survives the longest in the haunted house? It's a girl who does Kung Fu to all the spooky stuff.
That's right.
And she scissor kicks a cat ornament, and that almost gets the spooky house. I can't explain it. Move
Yes.
on. Next person.
1977. Houseu. Watch it.
Houseu. Check it out.
1977.
Or don't.
Oh.
It won't hurt my feelings.
Yeah. I watched first episode of Watchmen because people are talking about it and I have to know.
Just the first one.
Jake is watching The Watchmen.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't know. I didn't want to, and then I was like, well, okay. Might as
Yeah, now
well.
you can just kind of like get through it at your own pace.
Watchmen is a movie about the police department that watched Surviving Edge Weapons and how they do police shit. As far as I can tell, I'm one episode in.
Yeah.
But it's making a comment on police and like Black Lives Matter and Antifa and the alt-right that I can't understand what the comment is supposed to be just yet.
Right,
That's
like
my favorite.
vague police statements.
Yeah.
One time, me and Andy Palmer from Grubstakers podcast, we used to have a comedy show together, and as a joke, the theme always changed. And one month the theme was police awareness. So we made a long PowerPoint that was where the joke was just like a picture of a cop, and it was like, "This is police. Be aware. This is what a police is." Well, guess who showed up after we did the marketing for that?
All the cops.
Only off-duty police. And I hadn't seen Andy's part of the segment, and I was like, I don't know what point we were making, but I hope I don't die tonight now.
I wish I could have seen that.
Yeah, I was. That's probably the most scared I've ever been to do a comedy show.
Yeah, my favorite thing about like current day mainstream shows is that you have to be making a political statement now because we live in very political times.
Right, you have to sing
But
a song.
everyone who makes shows is dumb as hell.
Yeah.
So you have to make a statement, but you don't know anything.
Yeah, it's
So it's
interesting
like-
because Damon Lindelof has gone so long getting smoke blown up his ass for various projects he's been involved with, some of which I actually really like. I do really like The Leftovers.
I will never watch it.
I recommend it.
It's cool.
I'm sure
it's
you
really
do.
good.
It changed Jeremy's life.
I wouldn't say that. It's a good show.
You love it.
Catholics
That's your
love
favorite
it.
show.
Catholics do love it.
Catholics be loving The Leftovers.
That
was
dude-
My
never a
man over
Catholic.
here.
It's not for Protestants.
I was a prot.
He made Lost. A prod. That guy made Lost, and then he fucked it up and he lied to the audience about having an ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they just let him like do a do-over. That's what Leftovers is, right? It's just Lost, but I did it right this time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but-
like what if the
made it
world
Australian
was
at
the
the-
island?
Yeah. What the world was the island.
About
How about
the
that?
rapture and shit.
Yeah,
That
sort
shit
of.
isn't real.
It's in Australia at the end.
In any event, the point is that he's able to make a show that's like fairly compelling about feelings because everybody has feelings, and like you can explore yourself and figure out feelings pretty good.
Yeah.
But now that he's trying to tackle politics, it really kind of feels like he's just lost in the sauce. He just like doesn't really know what the fuck he's doing anymore.
Yeah, I haven't seen the show, so I can't make any
Yeah.
Politics.
actual.
is the
Commentary.
nation's feelings?
A dream
How
that
hard
the
could it
nation
be?
is having.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I'm never gonna see it.
I think the first few
episodes.
episodes are like stylish and cool and like good enough, and then it spectacularly falls apart in the second half of the season.
I think it tricks dumb people into thinking that they're smart.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, The Watchmen is weird because it's, like, it's so popular, and yet it's one of those things, like, super popular, but 90% of people you talk to, you go, oh, you didn't actually get it. You just thought it was a fucking fun story.
Yeah,
about...
most people think Rorschach is cool.
Yeah.
Dr.
Well-
Manhattan is a good guy who's so powerful. It makes sense, right? He's so powerful.
But there's a second level to this, right? 'Cause, like, there's a lot going on in that book. Like, it's, steeped in all this, like, British poetry and shit and
Oh, yeah.
weird stuff that's going on in different parts of the world and, like, Nixon and Reagan and shit. But, like,
What
The-
if Nixon
the-
fancied a shag?
there's like 2 or 3 steps out of the Plato cave with Watchmen. The first is realizing it's not just a superhero movie or a superhero novel, and then realizing Rorschach's a bad guy. So the show, it, like, makes it pretty obvious, like, all the people that followed Rorschach are, like, white supremacists.
Right.
So it throws
White
a bone
grievance
to
people.
people that are one step out of the Plato cave, and they're like, I'm smart because I realize that he's actually a bad guy and everyone else thinks he's a good guy, right?
There are
Yeah.
puppets up there.
But there's 3
Is that
more
the
steps
shadows?
before you're
Yeah,
out of the
yeah.
fucking cave and you have any idea what's going on. Like, that's not actually a very smart
You have to
observation.
get past the water
Right.
temple.
It's
Which is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
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 But I'm excited to hear what you think when it's over because I haven't seen it yet.
okay. Well, I'll
We mi-
spoil the show for you. When
Oh,
I'm done.
don't! Bryn hasn't seen it.
No, I love spoilers.
That's what I'm saying.
No.
Yeah,
We might do a show.
We might do a
episode
show
on
about it, yeah. In which case we'll, I don't know, have
Jake,
you
if
back.
you wanna come on.
Jake, come on, talk
will
about
make a-
Watchmen.
Make a
I'm
podcast
subscribing.
called The Listen Men. Or Listen to the Watchmen.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know.
Episode by episode.
I started watching a show called The Norseman. You guys
What?
seen this?
Excuse me?
Who
Norseman?
Norse is the Norseman?
Who Norse is the Norseman?
Is this
Yeah.
just what you're
I
calling
do.
Vikings on History Channel?
No. It's like a
That show's good as hell.
It's like a sitcom about Vikings.
Did you play Norse by Northwest on SNES?
No, it's a sitcom about Vikings. It's like kind of okay. It's good enough. That's really the only
It's
review I'd
like a
have for it.
BBC show, right?
It's on whatever like the Norwegian version of that is. So NNC.
Is it Daniel Simonson?
He's not in it. That's
should
what's
be.
insane.
He
He
should
should
be
be.
in it.
He
He's
should
a
be
star.
all fucking over that show.
BoJack Norseman. Okay.
Folks.
You said the secret word.
I just had one more I wanted to get out.
Is it a fictional show?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
like
Is it like Valhalla
It's
Rising?
a documentary.
I don't know.
Valhalla
But,
Rising
uh,
is that one where the
Nicholas
guy,
Winding Refn movie?
he has the axe and he kills all the guys.
That's
right?
the one. Yeah.
It's
I
like
think this is like a comedy. Yours is a comedy, right?
yeah,
It's
it's a
a
comedy. It's
comedy?
like if you could imagine like the scene that I would play out is two father and son of a Viking family like just finished killing a village worth of people, and then they have a conversation with one another where the father's like, that violence back there, I want you to know that's not me. That's like what I do for
Okay.
work. But it's not
Jeremy,
me. And
I-
that's essentially the whole show.
So it's about cops.
I think you've been
Yeah.
watching your roommate play God of War.
yeah.
That's
God of
what
War
that
4.
means.
That's what
Also, it's
it's
fucked up you call your wife your roommate. Think that's cool? You think that makes you cool, Jeremy?
yeah, the woman I live with.
Yeah, I like to like have sort of like an ironic detachment from my marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
for-
roommate
as a-
hates that about it.
As a bit. That sounds weird. How many episodes did you watch?
I've watched like 7 probably.
So it's good though. It's funny.
Wow.
No, see, we were talking about this off mic that like I have a tendency to just like watch or listen to a lot of something just because.
It's there.
It's
You like
there.
he likes rolling around in the mud.
Yeah,
He watched
With
all
the
of he hate
fucking
watched all of
piss
Breaking
pigs.
Bad.
that's true. I watched the
Like,
entirety of Breaking Bad and I didn't
recently.
like a minute of it.
insufferable. Insufferable behavior.
I just
choices.
like to hurt
Well,
myself.
it works for the show
It is perfect for your show.
because then I can tell them to watch anything. It'll just watch.
Yeah, I'll watch anything.
Wow.
Honestly, I've listened to so many people's podcasts that I don't even like.
Yes, we were just talking about that,
Yeah,
but
I'm
we
not
won't
gonna. I
continue
won't
to
name
talk
check
about
them
it.
on this.
Mark Maron.
Ira.
So I don't you guys might know this person, but I just heard about this this show called Joe Pera Talks with You.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
You guys have all seen it?
Yes.
Yeah,
we
know everybody
done
on
shows
the show.
with Joe Pera and shit before.
Well, I've seen Joe Firestone at your show.
Yeah.
I think it was your show.
She did
She
Yoko.
could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Or she
Um,
tried it both.
She's very popular. She's on TV.
I know. I watched her
Yeah.
this week.
Yeah.
But I
very
love
short. Why is she so short?
she's a normal sized
I
woman.
I would love if that was your criticism of the show. Pretty good. Why is that woman 5 feet tall? Answer me that.
Why is she the height of my mother?
I don't like it.
Why is
No
she
one
not-
else can be 5 foot.
She's not within my reaction range.
That's a joke for later
Yeah,
when
you
we
will
talk
get
about
that.
the movie.
You'll get that joke in a minute. No, as my friend told me to watch the show, and he said, don't read anything about it. Just watch the show. I don't know why. There's nothing to spoil. It's a very pleasant show where a ambiguously aged man who acts like a grandfather just tells you about ore and
talks to you.
beans and stuff.
Yeah.
and-
Did you watch the episode where he discovers Baba O'Reilly?
Yes,
And they
beautiful.
got the rights to
episode.
Baba O'Reilly and play it the entire episode?
Yeah, it's just like there's an episode where an old man. How old is this guy? Is he like our age?
He's like our
30.
age. Yeah, he's
He's
maybe a
our
little
age.
older.
Old man vibes.
Yeah,
You're
Yeah.
right.
extreme old man.
He
vibe.
pretends to be an old man. He lives in a house of lies.
One of my favorite things that anybody ever said about him was a friend of the show, Brian Baugh. He said that the first time he saw him, he thought he was doing an offensive Native American voice.
Oh, I hear it. Yeah.
I think that's his real voice, though.
Yeah.
No, it seems to be. I just watched. I was looking for an interview where he was like being his real self, and I found an interview where he's wearing like an emo kid hat and like shorts and has a beard and stuff. He
Yeah.
talks exact same person, just dressed differently.
Yeah.
That don't line up, honey.
But a beautiful show, nice little show where a guy just kind of deals with a relationship, and it's not very funny at all. It's I no offense to Joe Pera or anybody who writes Connor O'Malley or anyone on the show. It's a great show. It just is very
You learn.
calm. It's
Yeah.
it's a chill little reflection
His first
on stuff.
offshoot that started this whole thing was a short called Joe Pera Talks You to Sleep,
Yeah.
where he
Yeah.
just gives you facts as you go to sleep. And this show has sprung from that. And that's what you should know before you go in.
Yes.
You know, statistically, somewhere out there, somebody's like done heroin and watched just Joe. Yeah, Joe.
Talk me to sleep.
Dude,
that
somebody's
would be
done
awesome.
heroin and listened to Ballin' Out Super.
Wait, did they tell you?
We saw a picture. They posted a picture of them in our shirt, and they said something like, "Oops, I OD'd in my Ballin' Out shirt."
No, I had never heard this before.
Holy shit!
My life is not better for hearing it.
It's like one of the rare times where somebody mentions the show where I'm like, I'm not retweeting this. I
is-
absolutely am letting this die.
Oh,
You're
man.
letting your fan die?
Yeah.
Jeremy.
And you're calling him this?
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
watch Joe Pera Talks with You. It's very sweet and not like this horrible conversation.
Don't
about
do
your dead
heroin.
friend. Yeah,
And don't do
please
heroin.
Don't do it. It's not
Please
worth
don't
it.
do heroin.
It's too risky.
Um,
But you know what else is risky? Approaching a perp with an edged weapon. And that's what we learned today.
We watched a training video that broke our minds.
Yeah.
So who knows what it did to all of the police officers they made watch this. First of all,
Do you think police officers found it funny?
I hope so, but I don't think so.
Absolutely not.
Humorless people.
No, the people who watched this show were fucking terrified when they left the room. They were like, I was not thinking about edged weapons enough.
Before we even get into the film itself, the existence of the film raises a lot of questions, right? Because what it is like referred to as an industrial. It's like an instructional, safety manual video type thing for a workplace.
Right.
It's also an hour and a half long, and it also heavily is kind of implied that like cops have those school days where instead of going to work, you watch a video.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know? Like it was
Your
The
instructor's
chief is
hungover.
hungover.
Yeah,
It's raining or something.
Substitute lieutenant is like just has a needle hanging out of his arm. Like, you know what? I'm not. You know what? Watch this show today.
One day the chief
Please
was
don't
looking
make
at all
any
the
noise.
recruits going, you know what? These guys aren't afraid of knives. And they should be.
So, as a substitute for whatever training they were supposed to have already had in, like, police academy or something, there's this video that's primary purpose is to educate police officers about how to interact and protect themselves from edged weapons, which we learn is a vague term for
Something sharp.
Something
Literally
sharp, yeah.
anything that could cut you.
hidden knives.
Yeah, because like it's
A
not
glass.
because you
A window.
Well, but the thing is that like edged makes me think of stuff that has a long, sharp edge, but they also include pointy, pokey things in edged weapons, which does not have an edge. It has a point. It's a different thing.
Oh my god. Make a new video then. You make the
surviving
pointy
pointed weapons.
Yeah,
Surviving
what kind of
pointy
geometry
weapons.
class is this? A point and an edge? It's all the same.
They're not the same thing.
You cannot use the X block to defend the pointed weapon.
Yeah, it's a conical weapon.
Just to like bridge the gap of whatever reason we would be talking about this on our show, it does make you think about why they show cops. This video in particular, and what does it teach you? And it seems like it teaches you that you should just kill anyone you see because they are probably covered with hidden knives.
Yeah.
Literally.
Like it's disturbing that this was an instructional video for cops because it really has. If it was fake, it'd be hilarious. It has the vibes of like a Too Many Cooks era adult.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know what it
It's
reminds
like
me
an
of is
infomercial.
Look Around You.
What's
Did
that?
you watch
Yeah.
Look Around You?
Thanks.
It was a so it was a series of these little short films. I think they were like 10 minutes long, and they were all designed to look like old educational videos, like you would get in the Wheeled Into the Classroom setting.
How about you want some education?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Educational
Watch
weapon.
this.
Sit down, officer. I'm going to teach you a thing or two.
But so they were all meant to look like those old science videos, and so it would be one is about like
Salt.
calcium, right? And the calcium one is like, here we see calcium, and he's like holding up a tooth, and then he's like, watch what happens when we expose it to vinegar or something, and it just like dissolves in a cup. And it's all just like these weird little like surreal moments of like
wrong.
nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is like that because ostensibly it is about here's some possibilities that you should be aware of as a police officer, but in practice, it is about fearing everyone
Yeah.
all of the time because they all have fish hooks in their pants.
It sounds like it was made by a disturbed, like, paranoid...
Which they have a word for.
Come back around.
Yeah.
He's in the video. But like
An
a...
EDP.
Like a excessive, obsessive, compulsive sort of like level of paranoid thing. Someone who's fixated on the idea that knives could be hidden in literally anything.
Yeah.
because we have to start. We have to talk about the beginning at some point.
Let's start
but-
at the beginning.
All right.
At the
Take
dawn
notes.
of time.
literally where this movie starts.
Yeah. Like
Humans
Even in the realm-
discover the flame.
even in the realm of like videos that like are educational and have high production value and involve like really detailed act outs of things, even in those I've never ever come across one that starts at the fucking dawn of time.
We open on a caveman burning some meat.
He's
for-
burning
for
meat, and they're talking
ingestion.
about how humans are apes that use tools, and that's what sets us apart. And one of our best tools is the knife.
Yeah.
And so a
weapon.
culture has developed around the knife since the dawn of man. We'll call it knife culture.
The first half of the movie, they vamp on the term knife culture so hard, and then
Yeah.
they just get distracted and start talking about like acronyms and shit.
Yeah.
It never comes back. But
Well,
knife
they-
culture is presented as the fucking central thing.
At least
Yeah.
20 times within the first 30 minutes.
Well, in the
they
second
say
half-
knife culture.
The second half, they get distracted from knife culture to remember to do the training part of the training video.
Yeah.
Right.
It's only the first half that's the crazy part of the movie.
The director was like, a history of knives. How about that?
So
It's like it has the hallmarks of a movie that was already like a bit short of feature length, and then the studio was like, no, this has to be feature length.
you gotta get
And
7
so
more
they
minutes
add
in
like
there.
10 more minutes of bullshit.
I don't know.
Like,
There's
why?
cavemen, and cavemen have knives. So one of the cavemen robs the other caveman, and you think that's the end of the scene, and they've stopped the narrator stopped talking for a second, and then the one on lying down that's been robbed produces like a stone knife from out of nowhere and just like slashes the other one to ribbons in front of you, and you're just watching like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And so this sets up kind of what the rest of like the structure of the film will be, which is we're kind of like cutting between these detailed reenactments and interviews with real people, and then they'll do not necessarily reenactments, but like in real life demonstrations of stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It definitely, this movie has the vibes, especially in the reenactments. Whoever specifically directed those segments, it seems like it's a horror film special effects type director.
Yeah.
And the actors that they are stuck with working with are just cops, because all of the actors have like the thick cop da Bears mustache and voice combination. So even the caveman in the beginning of the movie, in the Space Odyssey part of the film, have like a thick mustache.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look like cop cavemen.
Yeah, and they're acting at the level of like what a cop, who wanted to do a fun thing on the weekend for extra credit at the police station or whatever.
Sometimes they get lucky and they get to film a scene with one of the Hell's Angels.
Yeah.
Who luckily contributed their acting to the film.
But in terms of the directorial style, I was thinking a lot of, as we were watching, I was thinking a lot of like Mondo documentaries, like obviously Mondo Cane, but the what is it called? The Cannibal Holocaust.
Cannibal Holocaust.
It's very similar to Cannibal
like
Holocaust in a way.
Yeah, it's like
Culpable Holocaust.
It's like if Culpable?
That's what
Culpable
this would be called.
yeah.
Culpable Holocaust.
Culpable Holocaust.
It's like if Toby Hooper got canceled and wasn't allowed to work in Hollywood anymore, and just was like, I guess I make cop videos now.
How about
They gotta
Cannibal Knifeacost?
That's I mean that's
The
two words in
Texas-
a row.
Yeah.
Edged weapon massacre.
There you go.
Nightmare on Crime Street.
Yeah, and then it has these really. We begin with these really bad sort of like early Dateline 2020 type interviews.
Well, there's a bunch of facts.
Oh, okay. We start with facts. Go
They
ahead.
get these out. I have some notes here, and some of them are in quotes. And this is the part of the movie where they're trying to establish that they know things, I guess, because you're watching, you're like, okay, well, those are cavemen killing each other. This seems like you're just making it up. And so they do the cop thing where they go, no, soldier, what if I told you 80% of the time you remove an edged weapon, it could be used against you? And you're like, that's a very vague fact and number to pull out. 1/3 of the time you'll be hurt. Okay.
They put it up front like 80% of the time people have edged weapons, which sounds like knives because they haven't explained to you what an edged weapon is. But later they kind of say, well, an edged weapon could be literally anything.
Yeah.
So I have edged weapons on me right now.
A dream can be an edged weapon.
After the caveman intro and a basic breakdown of like some weird rules and vocabulary, the thing just crescendos into this acid trip where you're like trying to convince a police officer, like, look around the room. Do you see that computer? No, you don't. You see an edged weapon. Do you you see a can of beer? Cut it in half to edge weapon. And then it's like at first you think 3 or 4 of these things for sure, but it goes like into like the dozens of examples. And a cigarette lighter. Guess what? You screw off the top, there's a knife inside. They at one point are like, sometimes lipstick thing. Yeah. These are popular among prostitutes, so look out when you're busting prostitutes because their lipstick might have a knife inside. They're trying to create an irrational fear in cops of knives everywhere.
When you're inside them, they may be inside you with a deadly lipstick knife.
Yeah.
Culminating in the best one, the baseball hat with a razor blade sewn to it.
But and you may be thinking to yourself, to your listener, those razor blades, are they sewn into the bill of the hat where you have a firm surface with which to slash?
Style.
No, negative. They are in the back of the hat, sticking outward.
So you have to hold it by the bill and kind of razor blade throw your hat around
like an axe,
because you're trying to get out of a speeding ticket. One more fact that I wrote down, and this is to make you scared. It says, in the last years, quote, injury from edged weapons are up 92%. And you're like, 92%?
In the last years.
Knife
So
culture
much.
has gone too far. And then the very next scene they showed you is a cop, and he's at a house, and he's like, hey, open up, I know you're in there. And then a man eyeing a broadsword and then running him through.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
5 minutes into the movie.
You're not far enough into the movie yet, in my opinion, narratively, you're not far enough into the movie yet to expand edged weapons that far. You really need to have gotten quite a bit into the narrative to say, also, you may not think about it, weird thing that happens sometimes, hand of God. Sword sometimes.
Yeah, I'm on my second playthrough through Breath of the Wild right now, and I thought I was having some kind of stroke or something. Where, like an item from Zelda.
Oh yeah, when you start getting like the portal brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it does break after around 7 hits.
Yeah, exactly. But he just like slightly opens up a crack in the door and then shoves the sword.
An entire sword. And the cop also does not die. He's like, I've been clipped. I appear to have a collapsed lung.
And then he
dead.
falls backward and shoots a few through the door.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things I wanted to talk
End
about.
of scene.
The directorial style is wild because like in an instructional setting, what you're functionally telling the cop there is like, keep an eye out for cracked doors and long weapons coming through it, right? That's mainly what you're trying to instruct.
Right.
The rest of that is all icing on top. Like, you absolutely could have cut at the stab and then moved on to the next point.
You could have freeze framed on the stab and
Yes.
said, no.
But instead, the director
Edged
chooses to have the man fall backwards, shoot through the thing, radio for help.
Well, it's also weird given that we run through about 900 scenarios in this film of, possible edged weapon attacks, and most of them they cut away and never really finish. But the first one, they decided to just kick this shit right off with, like, Conan the Barbarian just smashing you through the chest with a Zelda sword. And then also just other shit that might happen after that.
Right.
So much of this movie seems like this director just could not get the budget for a real movie and is like, we'll do some good stuff in the cop training video. Like, it's going to be interesting to watch. Just a ninja star.
Yeah, somebody's special effects reel.
They're just doing details that don't need to be in there. They're like, tell my wife the game's canceled. You're thinking, what else does the creator of this great video have to offer? I should follow up and see what else.
I can't get over the crescendo thing because it starts with like there are different types of knives. There's like a pocket knife, there's like a kitchen knife,
Butterfly knife.
and then it starts to get a little racist. And it's like you may have heard of the Mexican style Kajuko killing knife, the Asian.
It looks like an eagle's
backhanded
talon.
knife. Yeah,
The Tortuga knife.
the Tortuga knife. And then it like cuts to a pen, and it's like, and you've definitely seen one of these before. No, I haven't. A ballpoint pen that's also a knife. Cool, I guess, but I've never seen that. Then it like kicks up from there into the cigarette lighters and shit like that. And there's a weird one. Oh, right. And then it like after Secret Knives, it just shows you a like a morning star, like a medieval style swinging mace.
Yeah.
It's like, this is kind of an edged weapon. This
It
could
has
happen.
edges and blunt things. It's the ultimate weapon.
There is a vague threat in this film of fighting like a knight. Like,
Which would be very hard to do if you don't find distance and neutralize.
yeah.
So many dramatic reenactments. So this is intersected here, and Bryn brought this up before, with what I wrote down as stupid interviews, where they talk to policemen who have survived edged weapon attacks, who you find out, spoiler, at the end of the movie, are all psychopaths. Because they talk about
Shocker.
how they survived the knife attacks, and the one was like, you'll never kill me. You come at me with a gun, you come at me with a knife, I'll kill you first. The
fight
you have
is-
to rip my head off.
Just fucking freaking out on Xbox Live about his KDR.
I will come to your house, motherfucker.
I will never get taken down by some melee weapon pussy.
Oh, here he goes.
Another thing you need to look out for is wrist darts.
Oh, yeah.
Just a wristband that you keep darts in.
Oh yeah, because then
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't see it. It's in your wristband.
Yeah, projectile
Ballistic
blades. Yeah, big part
The
of
gun
this.
blade is a huge portion of this film. They do talk when they are talking about starting to defeat the knives. They're like, now if they have a ballistic knife, they're gonna shoot it, but it is not a real gun, so don't worry.
Our police officers need to know how to do battle with Squall Leonhardt from Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh yeah.
Now you will take out your duty materia. At this portion, you will be allowed to fly. Okay, it's the interviews. Is there anything else to cover in the interviews? All of them talk about how they were
Yeah, me, I was a regular cop, just out there, didn't think I'd ever be stabbed or nothing. Out there one day, walking my beat, saying to myself, boy, I like having no holes in my body. And then out of nowheres, what happens is, oh boy, a perp with a edged weapon.
a 13-inch long butcher knife.
Yeah,
did
all of them
appear.
have insane weapons. It's the same thing. It's like
It was
guy's
on
like,
fire.
yeah, I found out he was a butcher at a, and he's like thinking to himself, like, what else do you call a butcher shop? Slaughterhouse. And you're like, that's not right.
The perp approached me with the sacred master sword. Clearly had been working quite some time to acquire this weapon.
I said, hey, buddy, put that down. He swung his sword.
Yeah, they're
I
all
was cut in half from here to here.
All of the interviews they're also clearly from like late 70s, early mid 80s, something like that.
It's
There's
1988.
88.
88
Okay.
is the
Now
whole
that's a
film,
year.
There's Vaseline on the lens and like a very vague, like Frank Stallone as the bartender and Barfly kind of vibe.
Yes.
Lots of tight shirts and weird mustaches. And
and all of them have hairlines that are inscrutable.
So confusing.
And to think that they're our last defense against knife culture?
But
Pretty
they also
scary.
all talk as if they've been prepped by a lawyer moments before, and they all
Right.
use the same kind of phrases.
Yeah.
Don't give the knife an inch in court.
Well, it's like a lawyer, but for your masculinity, because he like goes to them and he's just like, listen, you don't want to sound like a pussy. So like all of these parts where you're talking about fighting the guy with the edged weapon, you need to make sure that like you almost had him.
Yeah.
Also,
Every
it's always-
single one of them
but
has
it's
a
all
point
like-
where they're just like, I got a handful of his throat, but little
Yeah.
did I know he had a knife.
But it's all like the perpetrator had lacerated a part of my hand, but I reached for my weapon that was issued to me by my sergeant. It's like, who cares?
yeah. There's one guy that's just describing like the cut and how it went across his face, and he's saying that the guy cut his fucking nose off.
Yeah.
But like he cut the nerve that controls the pain in his face before he slashed across the nose. So the guy's like, yeah, I looked down, my nose was on the floor. I didn't realize because he cut the nerve.
Also, you're looking at him and you're like, but you have a normal face.
Like
Yeah.
an extremely
way.
normal face.
It's 1988. There's no way this
Yeah,
happened.
he's like,
and
I
you
had a
had
series
like
of
back-
microsurgeries. It's like from Doctor Who?
Yeah, he would have had
Face looked
terrible
like that.
plastic
Yeah,
surgery.
but it's clearly alive.
Well,
He's too handsome.
He maybe had the Mel Gibson, like the one guy that like, because that's Mel Gibson's story, right? Is that he like fucked his face up and then like they rebuilt it and it made him like,
I think that's
You're
a
thinking of
movie.
RoboCop. You're thinking
You're thinking
of
of Face Off.
the movie Face Off. They switch faces.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look this up. I
No,
think
there
it's a
is
thing.
a Mel Gibson movie where he's got a burned face. And
No, it's not a movie.
But-
I heard that happened to him as an actor, and that's like what he like after.
That's
okay,
why he's like that.
I might be pulling this out of my ass. I heard this at a bar 20 years ago or something.
Yeah, he got his nose cut
when I
off
was
by Jews.
12. Apparently, it was in some horrible accident.
Pack of,
Pack of Jews.
He wakes up. They've rebuilt his face with plastic surgery. He like sees himself in the mirror, and he's like, "I gotta go to Hollywood."
And he's like, wait a second, I don't look Australian anymore.
he used to look like this.
Is that for real?
No, that's from The Man Without a Face.
Oh,
Oh, Jesus.
Oh no!
We'll put that in the description.
Very upsetting to
One,
look at.
one of these reenactments when the cops describing what happened to him, it's like the blood is trickling down the guy's arm, and you could just see that in the reenactment, he's even then wearing a calculator wristwatch.
Oh, yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
very big signifier of
He
the
needs
times.
to count the knives.
Yeah.
There's so many.
There's so many edged weapons around me.
There's 8 times 25 knives coming at me. I can't can't do that math in my head.
They all have 8 knives on them.
No, he's handcuffing the guy. He gets the knives off. And he's like, "Hey, look at this. It says boobs."
Funny,
If you see my wife,
you're
Pretty
going
funny.
to jail.
You're going to jail for the rest of your life. You're gonna come out much worse than you went in. That's something they say in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So after you've seen some more reenactments and you've seen the stupid interviews where they're like, I was stabbed all over the place, the movie then it's like, okay, well, you've heard so much about stabbing, but let's point out that it's bad. And it just shows you footage of just like giant dead corpses with like holes all over them.
Yes.
And it's like, knives are bad.
Well, and this is where I started to
They
think of like
stab
those
you.
mono documentaries. Is like
Yeah.
it's you're putting real stuff next to fake stuff. It's like Faces of Death
Faces
is
of
like
Death,
this
yeah.
too, where like you're putting real stuff next to fake stuff to like nobody is being fooled by the fake stuff necessarily, but you are kind of like
You're
seeing them
traumatized
all
by the really
together.
upsetting real stuff. And then it cuts back to one of the interviews, and this guy is telling you about the perp with the butcher knife who turned around. He turned around because he thought he was getting away from the butcher knife guy, and then he says, but then the perp, he literally exploded. And we were all there like, what do you mean he exploded? Exploded with anger onto my back. And it's like,
It's like the kind of thing you'd say in court. You're just like, and then he exploded, and everyone's like, "Is that how that happened?" He's like, "Yeah, that's how that happened. I was running away. He was charging me with a weapon, and he exploded."
he exploded. It was strange for me as well.
Now, officer,
he
we
busted.
Yeah, he literally exploded in his pants, officer.
It shows you 2 movies you've probably seen, and it's like, you may have seen Hollywood's portrayal of knives in the hit movies of Halloween or Hatchet for a Honeymoon. And then you're thinking, like, is that this director's other movie? Is Hatchet, or is this a vehicle for Hatchet for a Honeymoon? We're all supposed to go watch Hatchet for a Honeymoon after this.
Did we find any information on that movie?
What I found out about it is that it's an Italian movie,
Okay.
Of
which
course.
does lend
Knife
some
culture
credibility
very strong.
to the Mondo influence.
Yes.
And now I'm wondering if because I looked at the guy's IMDb page who directed this, and there's nothing else
He's
on
a
there.
ghost.
No, maybe he's an Italian guy who got hired to do this, and he like gave himself just like a fake name so that the cops would trust him.
What is his name? Dennis Reynolds?
It would make sense because at one point in one of the reenactments, like a guy kills a cop by hitting him with a butcher knife in the top of his bald spot head.
Yeah, like he cuts
through
his
his-
head, his skull in half.
Like a fucking Game of Thrones death. Like,
Yeah.
It is a Dario Argento kill. for
All
sure.
of the reenactments are just cops being murdered in ludicrous ways.
Yeah. And I have
Yeah.
to admit, at a certain point, we all started just cheering for all of the criminals.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it becomes this incredible horror movie where all cops just get murdered.
it's fucking cool.
It's
It started
kinda
to
cool.
feel at times like a Final Destination movie where you're just kind of like watching the scene play out, and you're like, "What's it gonna be?
Don't go in there.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be does he have a knife in his pants? Does he have a knife in his jacket? Oh, gas cap. What?
Gas cap
No.
was it was like a surreal
Gas cap knife.
David Lynchy thing.
Yeah.
The
Because-
dealership isn't going to want to put in the gas cap knife, but if you ask nicely, you
Yeah,
can
you're
do
gonna
it.
have to insist.
He's going to pull a knife out of his golf bag and start blowing up cars on Sunset Boulevard.
There was this like Lynchian surreal thing to it because half the time it was somewhat realistic, and they were going to go, look, someone might palm a knife by holding it in their hand this way, which is a thing that humans do. But then sometimes like everyone starts talking backwards, and then I take this microphone apart and there's a knife in it. And I'm like, "Ah, what's happening?" You know,
Snap, snip, and snap, and slap, shoot, up.
the gas cap thing was like, no one's ever had a gas cap on their motorcycle.
A knife
that has a
gas
tiny
cap.
knife in it. that you
It
just-
wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that.
And then the
You
way
could
that's
do
shot
it.
is he tries to stab the cop, and the cop stabs it with the palm of his hand.
Yeah, he
Right.
blocks
And he's
it.
just looking at a knife coming out of the back of his hand.
He's like, cool knife.
And there's a rack focus from his stabbed through hand to his face.
Some of the directorial
very
decisions
strange.
in this, by the way, mwah, Jeff Kiss.
Yeah.
Slow zoom on the dying cop's face for no reason.
Well, actually, speaking of David Lynch, there's the biggest thing that happened was Alex got really frustrated because there was a scene where a guy who looks to be some kind of 1980s hype beast / Mr. Fantastic gets out of his car and he's like, I got my ID hanging. It's this edged weapon.
After a long car chase.
Yeah. He has a car chase first.
And the cop is like, get on the ground. He pulls out his gun, and then it just cuts. And Alex was like, I can't stand this. I need to see the rest of that scene. And then it doesn't come back until an hour later.
It's a framing device.
Yeah, it's like that.
It knows you want to see it.
It's like that scene in Mulholland Drive where they're talking at Winkies, and then they like, out in the back, there's a guy behind a dumpster, and it will kill you. And then that doesn't happen until the end of the movie. It's very strange. It's very dreamlike.
The conclusion of that scene, by the way, after the police chase and the guy pulls over and is like, yeah, I got my license, my knife license. cut back. The cop pulls out a gun. The guy goes, shit, you have a gun? Oh, shit.
To demonstrate that showing your gun sometimes gets them to drop
Just
the
like
knife.
character development of this guy is like man who is not afraid of a police chase, pulls out his knife instead of an ID, and
Also tiny
does not know the police have guns.
I was so drunk, I forgot you were armed.
Well, like all the perpetrators in these scenarios are clearly played by shitty cops
Yeah.
with
Yes.
the DeBears accent and the mullet and the mustache or whatever. So they're doing like what cops in real life do when they have to go undercover, and they're just like they haven't, they probably talk like this and say, "Hey, what's your fucking problem? I'm just trying to drive my car here." The
Hey,
car
Mac.
has a vanity license plate on it that says "Kill Me" misspelled.
Oh, yeah.
There's another scene where one of these guys is just standing in a field, and a cop like walks up to him and goes, "Why are you standing out here?"
And he's like, it's a free country. I'm standing out here.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm standing here.
And the cop's like, I don't like that.
And then he
Stop
stabs the
it.
cop to death.
The guy's right. He should be allowed to stand out there. He's not fucking doing anything.
It just
Yeah.
escalated so
Well,
quickly.
he just immediately grabs him. Like, he's not allowed to just... I mean, I guess cops are allowed to do whatever the fuck they want.
For sure. I mean, he's lucky he wasn't neutralized at a safe distance of 40 feet.
Yeah.
Which is the overall lesson of the movie, is you should just be taking out everyone you see from like half a block away.
Yeah, but they're all played by the guy who, like, shows up to your punk show wearing a Motley Crue shirt tucked into his Dockers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a criminal, there's nothing better than illegal drugs.
Am I right,
for
fella?
ending a life.
Oh, you know what I was thinking with the knife gun scenario is a fun actor's choice there would have been to have come out and been like, "Oi, mate, I thought you was like the British ones."
They just all have pool cues. There's a parallel video in the UK that's just like, street toughs. What to do when they get grimy.
Yeah. A training video on how to deal with the like stereotyped British character that's like, "I'm the guy who licks his knife, throws him across the bar."
So you have to kill Action Bronson. What's the name of the guy who's in jail and he's naked all the time?
Charles Bronson.
Charles Bronson.
Oh yeah.
Charles Bronson.
Yeah,
Cut
that guy
it in.
owns.
Action Bronson.
Fix my joke. Cut it in.
Fat chef rapper.
You have to
Charles.
kill Action Bronson.
Who was
though.
in The Irishman, fun fact.
Yes.
I've
Not
got-
in a very fun way.
A movie we'll never talk about on this or any other podcast.
I think I looked up a thing. I want to talk a little bit about the racist shit going on in this movie because it's pretty funny.
So much.
When they're talking about knife culture, they just immediately cut to like some stock footage of just third world countries and shit.
Yeah.
They say knife culture is central to the cultures of like South America. The countries of South America, Mexico, Asia, they list off a bunch of
Yeah.
shit.
The countries of Asia
Continents,
love
yeah.
knife culture.
They just list off the continents and countries that are included in the global south.
For no reason, well, for a pretty clear reason, they're just saying like, look out for people that might be from these countries.
Yeah.
Right.
They're knife culture people.
They don't have market economies there yet. They just trade knives, and then they trade slashes with the knives.
They
There's
have
also-
cultural fairs where they celebrate their knife culture in the street.
There's also a segment where they're like, but sometimes it could be someone you'd least expect. And then they have a guy walking into a court that is dressed like a like an extra from American Psycho.
Yeah.
Or like a Miami Vice.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's someone you won't expect. Hey, officer, I'm just being white. Let me reach for my knife.
Yeah, they're like
cuts
steps underneath this metal detector, and then he does, and it beeps, and then he just starts stabbing cops.
Yeah, for no reason.
A lacrosse stick can be a knife.
What was his goal? Like to get past them and
I
then
know.
into the building? He just gutted the fucking security guard who takes your change out of your pocket.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it'd be funny if it just cut to Matthew Lesko, the guy with the question marks
Yeah.
all over his suit. Could be a person you least suspect. But
I'm here to tell you about some grants from the government. Some knife grants.
there's another like scene right in the beginning where it's not even a cop. It's just to prepare you for knife scenarios, I guess.
Yeah, which are all the time.
There's like a guy doing a bad Jamaican accent, and then he's talking to a drug dealer who is clearly like a Middle Eastern dude, but like wearing the Scarface like long pointy fucking
yeah.
collar thing.
It's sort of like they had like an Italian guy or something, a Jamaican guy, and they just like were like meet in the middle and both do Dominican.
Yeah, there's just a mashup of 5 ethnicities, and no one knows what their motivation is. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna do the Apu voice," but he's like, in Apu voice, he's like, "I've got the drugs." And the guy's like, "No, you don't, man." And he stabs him.
Welcome to Jam Rock. Knife Jam Rock.
Edge first selector.
But then, after all that, so every once in a while when they introduce a character, they'll do like their name below them. Like
It's a rich
their
world.
title. And most of them are just like a cop with a lesbian haircut. And you're like, why the fuck am I going to look up Jan Lewis? Like, who the fuck gives a shit who Jan Lewis is? Well, I happen to look up this one guy, Leo Gage Jr. There's this Filipino
he's the knife guy.
Right. There's this Filipino guy they keep showing, and he's like doing the instructions on how to like do, how to do proper knife attacks. He always turns into like this weird little jig with
It
his
looks like
arms.
he's
Yeah.
like Michael Jackson arm punching.
Okay.
Like arm
Yeah, because
punching.
the way they keep framing it is like they'll do a couple of cut scenes of like some scenario where somebody gets stabbed on the street or whatever, and then they're like, "But what if the guy's really good at knife?"
If he's holding it like this, it means he knows what he's doing. So
Yeah.
you should be extra pointing your gun at his head.
Yeah. And
So really pointed.
90% of this guy's professional knife wielding skill seems to be that he puts his finger on the knife and then he just moves his hand around.
Yeah.
That's going to
Different
help a
ways.
lot, though. I mean, it doesn't seem like much, but it makes all the difference.
When you get to the jugular,
Yeah.
that's where it counts.
I'm no edged weapons expert, but that seems a little dangerous.
Don't
But-
appropriate knife culture.
So, I looked this up. I'm on the Wikipedia page for something called Pakiti Tirsia Kali, which is a style specific to Filipino martial arts. Pakiti Tirsia was founded in 1897 and is the system of the Tortle family. The sole heir and guardian of this system is Leo Gage Jr.
Yes,
Oh,
he's
boy.
the only one.
He's the sole heir to a Filipino knife-focused martial art.
There
He's
could
the
be
most
only
dangerous
one.
man alive. Thank goodness he's on our side.
Pakiti Tirsia is a strictly combat-oriented system as opposed to a sport-focused style. They do not compete in the Olympics.
No.
They only
Too
kill.
dangerous for the Olympics. You heard it here first, folks.
It is a fighting system that focuses on edged impact and improvised weapons. PTK, that's a shorthand for it, has been adopted as the preferred combat training program by elite military and law enforcement units around the world. No, it hasn't.
No, it hasn't. It was in that one movie.
His credits are surviving edged weapons in every Mortal Kombat game.
He was
Yeah.
in the background of Portlandia for an episode.
He's also one of the judges on Forged in Fire.
So this is just a guy who it's up to the imagination what the story is. Did
Right.
they go find him in their pursuit of an edged weapons expert?
Yeah,
Did
he
he
probably
come
killed so
to
many
them?
of them on the way there.
Fuck
Or
knows
did
what
he
happened.
did he pitch this?
Are you prepared?
Is he the one who got this movie made because he went to them and was like, observe the
Oh.
dangers of the edged weapon?
Well, I mean that's an interesting question because if you look at like the history of like police militarization and shit like that, there is an overlap where like American police forces were informed by like particularly militarized factions of the Philippines, like military and police.
Okay.
So at some point, this guy was in a room with an American cop, and they were like doing lines of cocaine. They were like, "I got an idea for a movie," you know? Something.
You are not afraid enough of edged weapons.
Hey, can I do more cocaine off your knife? Oh, you may think it's safe to be around this knife. But let me assure you, I could kill you at 40 feet away.
Let me read you some more about PTK. PTK incorporates 5 main weapon categories, including the human body.
Oh, the ultimate weapon.
Now he's
The most dangerous game.
solo baston, single stick, sword, or spear. Double baston.
Mighty Boston.
Shipping up to Boston.
That's double stick, sword, or spear.
That's how I lost my leg.
There's spear, sword and dagger, knife to knife, and hand to hand, and grappling.
That's a lot of weapons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's like 3 of these guys. There's a little bit more, but it basically just trails off into his weird family.
He's the world's deadliest man. And he's unsafe at any distance. The back half of this movie, and that's where you get into.
Oh wait, we haven't talked about at all the so there is interviews, and then there's the recreations, and then there are black and white pictures.
Right.
And those are
recreations by God
well they
that are
seem
real.
they seem to be purported to be just images from actual crime scenes.
Right.
Where it's like this guy was on a roof throwing glass at cops, and then they got him.
Yeah.
And
like
then,
Donkey Kong, but with edges.
But
Oh,
you
and they
s-
do the same with the wounds too, where there'll be like a hole in somebody's chest, and they're
right.
like, "This
but the black
guy
and white pictures are
didn't."
very confusing because towards the end there's one where one is in a superhero costume. And
Yeah.
it's clearly from like a Flash Gordon
That's a
movie.
great point, actually. And he's
like-
stopping 2 knives at once. He's so good at it.
Yeah, but they're like both like Uhara like type dressed ladies, like Amazon ladies. That's
Yeah.
clearly from a sci-fi show. And then some of them are clearly from the Vietnam War. So it's like, what are these supposed to be?
This perp thought he was getting out of the Congo, only to find he was already
He
dead.
was getting in to a knife fight.
One very interesting fact that I did not know before watching this movie is in one of the 5,000 reenactments of a cop asking for your license only to be stabbed in the face. They have a line that's like, you think you'll have time for your on-duty knife, but you're wrong. And that's where you stop and you go, cops have duty knives? Why do they have those? What are they for? They're just for Boy Scout shenanigans?
Yeah, I guess if you need to like cut a cable or something.
What if you need to carve soap?
You need to cut a birthday cake.
He's cut a birthday
What
cake.
if you need to open a box
Tactically.
of drugs?
It's going to be really hard to cut a birthday
Oh yeah,
cake with
how are
such a
you
small
gonna,
knife.
How are you
gonna
gonna do
find
the
when you find
scene?
the big paper bag of cocaine? How are you gonna cut it open, touch your pinky into it, taste it, and say, "He's
Book
going to
'em.
jail"?
Yeah, yeah, I'll say book 'em.
Yeah, you gotta have your duty knife.
Dude, I've always thought it'd be so funny though if in one of those scenes they taste it and it's heroin and he just like nods off.
That's what happens. That's why Narcan exists. Because it happens all the
It
time.
happens to dogs, I know.
Yeah.
Aw.
God forbid police dogs get knives.
No, the dogs
wait.
are chilling.
There's a
after
great
that.
scene with a dog.
Oh yeah.
The most important scene of the movie.
Yeah, actually, I think it is kind of.
Oh yeah. So all of a sudden, well, you want to do it?
Okay. So we've already seen around 100 reenactments with a broadsword and every kind of knife imaginable, and we're finally getting a grip on how to approach these perps. And the narrator comes on and he's iterating like, you might find yourself around an edged weapon in a moment you least expect. And it's two cops, and they're there, and they're like, we're here, we heard a report. And they're like, she's upstairs.
They're in an apartment building.
They're in an apartment building, and so they go up the stairs, and they open it, and they're like, police! And there's this crouched over figure in front of a shrine to Satan.
Yeah.
Well, you
Murmuring.
start seeing little pieces. You see, like, maybe an upside down cross. You're like, no.
Yeah, there's like a Baphomet head.
And then you're
There's
like,
an
oh,
Iron
wait,
Maiden poster.
okay.
Is
Yeah.
it's a disturbed individual, an EDP, and she's like, and then she turns around, like, before they had any kind of conversation with her, just right away turns around, pulls like a twisted dagger, like a 2-foot long,
Like the old
ceremonial knife,
The
Jafar
kind that-
from Atlanta.
Like
Yes,
Jafar
like
knife.
Jafar, yes.
Yeah.
and then like
the curvy kind that in a video game would have magic powers.
That's
yeah,
right.
she
Yeah.
thought it had a lightning bolt ability, and she charged at them like la 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 la, and they just light her the fuck up.
Yeah, they already have their guns out.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah, the
"Ma'am,
moment they
drop
see the
weapon."
Baphomet, they're like, this is fucked.
I see an Iron Maiden poster. Draw your weapon.
Clearly disturbed.
They did warn earlier in the film that some people will run at you with a startling martial arts style yell.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Those martial arts yells will distract you long enough for you to be snickety-snicked into pieces. But luckily, they blow this woman to hell immediately, just where she wanted to go,
Yeah.
around her beloved Satan. And so they approach her because they're like, she's dead, and they see a dog, and the dog barks at them, and then it cuts, and you know they murdered
No,
that
it
dog.
freeze frames on the dog, and this is why I was saying this is the most
Dog's
important
like,
scene of the movie.
Bet you're wondering how I got here.
No, the narrator, it's freeze frames on the dog with its mouth open, and the narrator says, how many edged weapons do you see here? And this is when you realize that, like, edged weapon literally means anything.
It's the teeth in your goddamn mouth.
If teeth are edged weapons, then everybody has a weapon.
Everyone
so
is
everyone
walking
should
around.
be killed at 40
The
feet.
lesson of this movie is like you see it and then leave the room and kill everyone you see.
Well, they use cop logic eventually a little later in the movie to go like, look, there's a rule. If you can come up with like 3 things, intent to kill you and a weapon delivery system and a weapon, you have the right to end this person's life. Which, with that, all calculated into the idea that anything with an edge is a weapon, that just equals you kill everyone around you.
You should be doing
Exactly.
it all the time.
And
Yeah.
you just try to remain a perfect circle at all given times with no edges. Otherwise, you're next.
File down your teeth.
Yeah. What is
not
this?
safe.
This is like written by a crazy person who's just like, no wire hangers, no fucking
Yeah.
like
Spanking people with knives.
yeah, cleaning their apartment with a toothbrush and shit. There can't be any edges on it.
I hate edges.
Just blowing the corners off of rooms. When they finally get around to the lessons part, which is the only part I guess you would hypothetically need to see if you were in cop school for this, they're trying to tell you how to be safe to approach someone with an edged weapon, which, as we've established, could be anything, and everyone has one. The only time you're safe is if you are with your gun pulled around the corner next to a car so they can't get to you, or you have like a wall between you or something. But they're doing the distances, and they show all these cops in mock scenarios approaching a guy with a knife, and they're like, from 1 feet away, do you think you have a chance? No, he's blown through your fucking head before you get your hand down to your mouth to scream. From 5 feet away, you think you've got time, but before you get your hand on the holster, and the guy just like fucking dies again. And then they keep backing up. By the point they find out you're safe, it's like
21.
it's half a block away. You're out of the room, and you just pull a gun on somebody, and you're like, get on the fucking ground. And that was like the green check mark comes out, and it's like, safe.
That's the way to do it.
It's the only way you won't be murdered on the street by a public who's in anarchy.
Yeah, so you identify the person has the intent to kill you from 40 feet away and then kill them first.
Right.
Also,
This is the part
as we
that
keep saying, you'll never know.
Yeah.
You're never safe.
You're never safe.
This is the part that reminded me the most of like Metal Gear Solid VR missions.
Yeah,
where it was
yeah,
like
yeah.
there was like a distance line of like, make sure you're exactly 21 feet away from this person, then sneak up on them.
Now you're approaching Mr. Raiden, and you ask for his ID. Then you notice his feet are knives. With one breakdancing move, your head is gone.
This is also the part of the film when they just start moving into like tons and tons of PowerPoint slides with acrostics that explain things. So like at some point during one of these reenactments, a cop is fucking killed to death, and then they just zoom out and they're like, "This could have been prevented with the use of SMENs."
SMEN.
Yeah, I took pictures of these. So I can remember what they are.
Yes.
SMENs is shoot, move, evaluate, neutralize, scan. In
You're
that
thinking
order.
most of those are the same thing.
Yeah, well, it's funny because they start with shoot, which seems wrong. It seems like it should be backwards. It seems like you should scan
You
and
think
then
it could
neutralize.
Just be men move, evaluate, neutralize.
No, but you got to shoot first and then do the moving and evaluating.
Also, that would be gay.
They do have a pat down sequence in this that is very homoerotic. It's extensive. There's like, penis is a knife in a way. You'll have to suck the knife out. It's the only way you'll know. Undo his pants.
That's a weird scene because it goes on for much longer.
It's way longer than half of the reenactments.
Yeah.
Some of the reenactments are just like footage of a man turning around and getting a knife through his face, and then the pat down scene is like a sensual thigh pan.
Yeah, they start playing like weird like late night commercial music.
Yeah, and he literally slowly unbuckles the guy's belt from behind him and then like puts his hand on the front. It's very strange.
Which
He
is
puts his
weird.
hand on the front of his pants and he's like, exactly as I suspected. Another edged weapon.
It's just like all of this is just one long guide to like keeping those feelings at arm's distance by using a gun.
If you see a gay feeling, shoot first.
Speaking of gun, Jake, what does gun stand for?
Gun is grab, undo, and neutralize.
Yeah, the one that does not involve a gun was gun.
Yeah, if somebody's coming at you with an edged weapon, don't forget to gun them down.
Gun, and by that I mean judo throw. Do not use a gun for gun.
There's also another one where they're just like, this police officer could have prevented this by busting out the CCRR, which is not Creedence Clearwater.
Yeah, it's not Credence.
Cover, communicate, reload, recover.
Reload.
Yeah, reload.
Yeah, and it's funny because these are all words except for that one.
Yeah,
They're
that's
like
confusing.
smens, gun, CCRR.
By that point, you just shouldn't have acronyms. You should just be like, just remember to stand
just don't-
away.
yeah.
That's where flim comes in. You have these guys who like couldn't graduate high school, like, yes, flim, remember that, flim.
Is that a P or a B at the end? I don't remember.
It's just that you have your gun drawn, the guy is holding a knife at you, and you're like, what is flim? What is it?
I was too dumb for college and too fat for the army.
That's why
What
they.
does smens mean?
Well, that's why they made the first one shoot, because that's all you really need to know.
This is also like real. So at some point, someone was gunned down by a police officer who was trying to remember his smens.
Yeah.
And like the last thing they saw was him like, smens? Smens?
It definitely starts with shoot. Glam.
Yeah, it's when we say real, we mean that this is developed by an academy called Police One Academy, which is a private institution that makes training videos for police and then shows it to them.
Guess what? Number one.
Oh yeah.
Top of the heap.
The number one police training academy in America.
Ichiban, baby. Top of the heap.
Yeah.
I really want to know how many departments like saw this. Because
think a
I
lot.
noticed in the credits, it's all seemingly shot and produced in like the Midwest. It's all
In
over
Milwaukee.
seems like Milwaukee and like some parts of Illinois. I saw. Like, I wonder if this made it out here.
I would not be surprised.
Maybe we can introduce it to the NYPD through our podcast.
Yeah.
If you
Since
are
they
a
listen
cop
to our
listening
show.
to
Yeah,
either
officers,
of our
if you're
shows,
listening.
Please use smens. That's the only safe way.
in reverse order, please. Snems.
Yeah, somebody at the NYPD like precinct was just like, yeah, we can't show them this. They're already out of control. They do not need any more reasons to shoot. This is just for like the fucking like steak and cheese cops in Wisconsin
Yeah.
who are just
Oh,
like
boy.
not defending themselves and being gutted in the streets like fish.
Yeah.
This is just to scare the shit out of some small town like Don Knotts howdy doody cop
Yeah.
into thinking that like every fucking corner in town is potentially a death threat, and it's just this weird small wiry Filipino guy that blew into town who's like, now then that'll cost you $600,000. Here's my tape, you know.
Yeah, and
you now know the way of knife martial arts.
That's totally what it is.
It's
This
true.
is not.
They've made $1 million industry out of this.
This is what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. The guy left the Philippines, and then he thought, well, I can sell this to cops because cops are dumb, and they will pay me money to learn, like, chainsaw judo.
Yeah, this is
or whatever.
part one of his day-long process with the police department. He shows this to them, and then he teaches them all the maneuvers and whatever. And this is his way of just, like, grifting money out of, like, small-town police departments, like the one where I grew up, where they brag about how they've never, in the entire history of the department, ever had to take a gun out. You know, it's like those types of places are
Good, that's a good
Not
brag.
where. Well, but that's the thing is, it's
Very
like
vulnerable
it's
to
for these,
edged weapons.
It's for these men who join the police force wanting action
Yeah.
and thinking that's what they're going to get, but then they get placed in some small town and they're just like, oh, well, it's a whole lot of house parties.
Yeah. House parties
Lots
full of bottles.
Lots of dice playing.
There was one reenactment that was just cops and guys with guns blowing each other away, and then a knife is brought out after everyone is dead to be like, and there's a knife too. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, I liked the one where towards the end there was like 5 cops just dead on a roof, and then a man who maybe had a baby arm.
We can't decide. That might have been perspective.
Yeah, it seemed to be perspective. But the one perpetrator, I guess, or the guy who was just also on the floor, is slowly reaching for a gun, and a dying cop is like, "Don't do it, man.
do it.
Don't reach
Yeah.
for the gun." And he's pointing his gun on the floor at his face.
Yeah. That baby arm has seen enough action today. I'll blow it off your body.
And then he does. He kills
Yeah, he
him
does.
for reaching.
Justice is served.
Yeah, there's parts of this where it's clear they're just trying to make a movie.
Yeah.
They're just,
Yeah.
all right, this has to be instructional, but my Reservoir Dogs inspired, like, freshman year script is, you know, I
Yeah.
can squeeze it in here.
Oh, one
We're
more
in
funny,
Nakatomi Plaza. Go ahead.
One more funny fact I want to get in before we wrap up is they're going over household items that could be a knife, and they're like, what if you get stabbed with a grapefruit knife? That's like 2 knives.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're like me, you've never seen a grapefruit knife before. Picture 2 knives.
Not sure why it's 2 knives.
It really stabs the shit out of a grapefruit, I'll tell you that much.
I was very confused by what that was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Some kind of forked V-shaped knife. Yeah. And then they go into a scene where they go back to the shitty Dateline guys
Right.
and start playing very strange 80s music that Jake thought may be coming from another apartment.
Right.
It sounded like the music that they might record
Yeah.
next door.
The-
Yeah.
These apartments just play cops telling a lesson kind of music.
It almost sounds like the end of Drive or something.
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It sounded slightly less cool to drive and slightly... Oh, it sounded like Mario Kart music. It sounded like
Yeah.
Rainbow
Yeah.
Road was about to happen.
Yeah, and then and then the cops
The
go,
cops driving around listening to The Knife.
Yeah.
Swedish
It's me,
band.
Mario. I have a knife.
one night to get fucking stabbed.
I remember my smens. Gun CCCCRR.
The guy who was stabbed with the butcher knife just starts weeping on camera, and then it freeze frames. End of movie. That's the end of the film.
Well, at first the psychopath guy starts saying,
Yeah.
"If you fucking
Personal
try
lesson.
me once with any weapon, I will fucking kill you.
You'll never be safe. You can't kill me, and I will,
I will
kill you.
end your shit. The
You will
fight
have
is
to
on."
Cut my head off.
He keeps,
Off!
he keeps looking at the editor, being like, "Leave this in. I want them to know. Leave
Nothing
it in."
else will kill me. Let it be known. I am a snake. This shit grows back. You see my fucking nose? You see a scar? It grew back.
This is hardly an exaggeration.
No, he literally said you'll have to cut my head
That's
off.
right.
To, like, no one. To
Yeah,
just the guy filming the movie. He
It's
was
the
like,
second to the last scene of the movie.
Yeah, he goes on like a Rick and Morty ass rant.
Yeah, and then the other guy with the weird hairline who looks like, I don't know. He looks like every cop you've ever seen, but a skinny, long one.
A lot of these guys
He's a
have
long
that
one.
80s like brown mustache.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like it looks like you have a dirty Sanchez on your face.
Yeah, but
Mustache.
your hair looks like a mop.
Yeah, you have like 3 receding hairlines somehow.
Yeah.
3 different ones. Wild.
Everything about this guy is like you see him and you're like, I feel bad for you for how this turned out. And he's like, I need to talk about how I was stabbed. I was just trying to run and they
Wait.
stabbed me. And he's
That's-
just like crying.
That's the guy who was stabbed like 30 times and shit.
Yeah, he's the one who's got the fucked up mustache because he got stabbed in the face, but then also got stabbed in the back a bunch.
I used to have a glorious head of hair. Then they stabbed it off with their edged knives.
I got scalped. Oh yeah, but he's real sad.
It's real sad.
And it would
he
be-
shouldn't have been a cop. I feel so bad for him. He's been through so much.
That one I felt a little bad.
It would be sad if he wasn't a cop.
I felt bad for him only because, like, this director clearly just, like, eyes were dollar signs the moment he got this shot.
Gage is gonna love this.
It's just, as the whole film is going, like, they cut back to him a few times, and he gets, like, some semblance of, like, yeah, you know, like, I almost had him, but then I was trying to get away, and then I got stabbed and whatever. Like, he sounds like he's got control of the situation. And then he's crying the wettest tears I've ever seen. They're so big and wide, and just, like, and they're, like, cartoon tears. And the camera just, like, zooms in on his crying face, and then the credits roll.
Yeah, freeze frame.
Now
Credits.
get out there. That's class today, everybody. Go
right.
beat your wives.
Take all of the fear that we've instilled in you and release it on her poor tiny head.
Remember, nails are edged weapons.
Yeah, these whores are walking around with 10 edged weapons on their fingers.
I thought the best acting in the movie was the prostitute scene when he's like roughing up this prostitute against the wall and she has a knife and he's like, knock that out, and she's like, you're just so uncool.
She's like, hey, you hurt me.
Yeah, she says
you're hurting me.
It seemed realistic.
Yeah.
She has a future.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
wonder how it
in
went because
Hollywood.
that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Everyone in this film's been stabbed to
How
death
will I
since.
look this up?
I don't know.
I'm
They're
an
all
idiot.
cops.
So this has been our first watching of a complete propaganda film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully the first of many.
And I have to say, incredibly entertaining.
Yeah. Would recommend.
Check it
yeah.
out.
Yeah,
We'll
would you
put the
guys
link-
recommend it?
I'll put
Oh,
the link
yeah.
in the description.
Yeah.
No, that fucking ruled. That's like really primo, like trade tapey era weird
Yeah.
shit from the past.
The kind of shit that you would have gotten, like, on a traded VHS that just, like, happened into your possession. You don't know where the fuck it came from,
Right.
but you just
Yeah.
have it somehow.
Before YouTube, you could only find this video in the woods.
yeah. Surrounded
like
by
under a log.
penthouses.
Yeah.
Well, it has to have made its way around to us because someone at some point who was in the process of actually working with it realized how funny it was and like leaked it.
or they
Jeremy-
found it at
Jeremy
like a
was a
thrift
cop.
store or something like that.
Yeah, that's how
Jeremy's
like
a cop.
like
My new theory,
Winnebago
Jeremy's
Man
cop.
type shit.
Yeah, exactly.
happens.
Well, I know that this had a life for a while in the tape trade. Like, I know that this
Yeah.
was like a pre-internet, like, pretty popular tape that got around.
Yeah, that fucking ruled. I'm thinking house party, just throw it on a projector on the wall.
Yeah.
Throw it
like,
on.
Yeah.
play music
It'll
and
kill.
shit.
The
It's-
cops
I'm
come
thinking
in, you're
edged
just
weapons.
watching the training video.
Hey, I've seen this.
Oh no, Spins!
I mean, I think I recommend it in 2 ways. One is that it's fucking hysterical in a way that most these types of films aren't, where
Yeah.
usually there will be 1 or 2 moments that are just absurd, but this movie is constantly delivering on
Yeah,
It delivers.
It really delivers.
absurd premises with more absurd conclusions, and it's just incredibly entertaining. And I wonder if I would have enjoyed it as much if I wasn't watching it with all of you guys.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure it was just very funny. But the
quality.
But it's definitely a good group watch.
it's
Yeah.
a great group.
Grab
Yeah.
some friends.
You could yell at it and stuff.
Yeah.
You're not gonna lose track of the plot.
Yeah.
It's basically Jackass for cops. little
Totally is.
little vignettes, very little.
I'm Johnny
character.
Knoxville, and this is Knife Lipstick.
I'm Johnny Knoxville, and this is being 5 feet away from anyone.
I'm Bam Margera, and this is getting my dick chopped off.
There was a chopped off dick at one
There's
point,
two,
right?
at least, yeah.
Yeah, at least two.
Oh yeah,
And just a
there's-
regular old dick.
Oh yeah, there's
Yeah.
also fucking full frontal for no reason.
Yeah.
Well, there were just tons of real like photos of morgue shit from
Yeah.
like stabbings, and then one of them was like on the guy's thigh, but they went ahead and included the entire picture, which included his uncircumcised.
His
dick.
wildly uncircumcised dick.
What do you mean wildly?
This
It was
guy's
the least
never been
circumcised dick I've
fucked.
ever seen.
That's what normal dicks look like, as far as I can tell.
The Moyle missed.
Out of the many I've seen.
Because the moil is
The Moyle
edged
missed.
weapon.
Yeah, the Moyle approached with an edged weapon.
Miss me with your moil tool.
With your bris.
Yeah,
Right.
Miss me that
Another
bris.
example
miss me
of
with that
teeth
goalie
being
shit.
edged weapons.
Yeah, but it was. I think it also works as a really interesting window into propaganda and what these people are being shown. Just
Yeah.
to just make them feel that everyone is out to get them. They are
Yeah.
at war with the citizen of their hometown.
Yeah, the next time a cop shoots a child and you're like, how were they threatened by a child?
Yeah.
Just throw this on for a couple minutes.
Think
and you'll be
about
like,
it.
oh, yeah, no, he
Yeah.
probably had like 9 possible edged weapons.
There were many acronyms about killing this child flashing through his head.
The
Yeah.
ends of his shoelaces, they could have been edged weapons.
Yeah, he only had 9 because that was 9 Finger Freddy.
Also, just a quick throw in at the end there. There is a whole part about emotionally disturbed people, which is a cop term for, I guess, just anyone
Yeah.
who is having a breakdown. And there's
Yeah.
this guy alone in a psych hospital who's cutting his own fingers off and throwing them at them.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
They
Fucking
eventually are
baller
just like,
move.
sometimes you can use a billy club to beat up the mentally ill.
Knives can't be trusted, man. You gotta
Yeah.
eat Go-Gurt and shit, man. You can't.
Yeah, Go-Gurt is the only safe product.
They're too dangerous.
Yeah, the movie kind of is really sneaky in that it doesn't ever show you a reason why the cops are interacting with any of these people.
That's true, yeah.
Like, there's a few speeding tickets, and then there is absolute insane people who are cutting their fingers off, but most of them are just minding their own business and are
Yeah.
being approached by police. And they're just
and
the
they're
cops,
also ninjas.
and the cops towards the end of the movie are just pulling their guns on completely unsuspecting civilians before they bring out their knives and to defend themselves.
Yeah.
It's a slaughterhouse out there.
They literally ran out of premises for why a cop would ever need to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And they just
They're
got
like,
to,
well, what do we do in this town? We fucking pull people over for speeding, and some people are insane.
Standing in field guy.
Oh, and
I
sex
don't
work.
like it.
Yeah.
What are you doing in that field?
Yeah, what are you doing here? Not on. What does he say? Like, not on a street corner.
Oh, yeah. Why are you
Yeah.
standing out on the street corner?
Hey, it's a street corner, not a field corner, buddy.
I don't
Let me see
like
those
that.
knife hands.
You know what it is? This comes back to the first movie we watched together, Falling Down.
Yes, it is like that.
Where they confront Michael Douglas because he's on their sacred hill.
Wonderful.
Why are you hanging out by this sewer outlet that we think is real important? But
right,
they're
let-
cops in this situation.
Let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
All right.
right.
So I guess we recommend it
Yeah,
for many
recommend it.
reasons.
Yeah, it rules.
7 Dragon Balls.
It's
7
terrific.
Dragon Balls.
No,
Perfect
that's
film.
that isn't even a podcast
Whatever.
you're representing here.
It's just a metric I use now.
7 out of 5. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to our podcasts. Mine and Jeremy's is Generation Loss, and you can find it wherever podcasts are sold.
This is Pod Damn America, the anti-Sharp Corners podcast from here on out.
Round
I learned
boys.
a lot from the film.
We also have, all of us have another podcast. Why You Mad? Ballin' Out Super. PP Lettuce. Listen to those too.
Yeah.
Oh, we make so much shit.
You'll never run out of podcasts. All you can do, you listen to podcasts, sun up to sundown.
You love it. We love it,
Podcast,
folks. You
podcast,
love
podcast.
listening.
You
Listen to
love
us.
it. It's all you do.
Podcasts are a weapon.
Keep doing it. An edged weapon.
Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah. We gotta get Sean to come do the history of knives.
The history of having edge. All right. Thanks so much for listening, everybody.
Edging is a weapon.
Knife.
Bye.
Good knife.
Good night.
Good night.